Back. Sincere apologies. We did have a technical issue. We are now back on board with sound. So, continuing the meeting, apologies. I note that there are no apologies. So, we'll move on from there. Could I have a confirmation of the minutes for the ordinary and confidential meetings of Council held on the 1st of December 2025? I need a councillor to move. Councillor Elizabeth Neely, and seconded Councillor Matt Wood. All those in favour? And that is carried. Disclosure of interests. As required at any other meeting, councillors must declare a conflict of interest at the start of the meeting and leave the meeting if the item is presented to council. They then may return when the item is resolved. At any point throughout the meeting, if any councillor recognises they have a general or material interest, they may flag at that point and follow the same procedure. So, can I confirm, are there any disclosures of conflict of interest here at all from any councillor? No? Okay, there are none. Lovely. And for the staff, same process. Officers, I need to ask you whether you have a conflict of interest in any item presented before council tonight. Does anyone have a conflict of interest? There are none. Okay, we're going. Urgent business is our next item. I note that there is no urgent business this evening. And on to item 7.1, petition requesting the suspension of council rates for Cartmel Street traders. There are no speakers on this item. Before we move to the motion, are there any questions of officers from councillors at this point? Okay, there are none. I am now calling for a motion. Do I have a mover? Councillor Peter Castaldo, and a seconder, Councillor Elizabeth Neely. Councillor Peter, would you like to speak to the item?
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to recognise the significant impacts to traders when major developments happen. And in this case, it's the tenants on the northern side of Burgundy Street between Cape and Horden Streets in particular. Acknowledging the spend map. But before I speak to this item, I've got a quick question for the relevant director, if that's okay, Mayor. Um, we received some spend map data on the impact. Could you speak to that just briefly?
Thank you, Council, and through you, Mayor. So, Council has reviewed the spend map data for the Heidelberg Activity Centre, and what it demonstrates is that there hasn't been a decline in overall spend within the shopping centre, um, even though there is the consequence of the disruption of the closure of Council's car park. Um, it's obviously not telling us whether or not there's individual impacts to different businesses, but overall in the centre, it seems to be holding strong.
Thank you. Having had a look at some of the spend map data, um, it's important for us to consider the broader area impacts and also the localized impacts. And however projects like Cartmel Street development affect everyone, it's very different to each of the traders and the trader type. And a tailored approach to supporting businesses through the period is absolutely essential. And I've been speaking with many of the traders in the area, and officers have been working to address these impacts as well. We've adjusted car parks, open car parks, and we'll continue to work directly with anyone of the traders that have been affected quite significantly in particular. And so, if any of you are listening for this evening, please do get in contact with me. We haven't come to the conclusion to support the officer's recommendation to support the reduction in rates, but I'm very happy to continue to support all of you in different ways that are tailored to make sure your businesses can manage best possible given their circumstances.
I'll just speak briefly.
Construction is disruptive, as we know, and council works with traders to ensure businesses remain open, excuse me, and accessible by providing short-term parking solutions so that essential access can be maintained. Banyule, as we know, is no stranger to construction, and we need a consistent approach in dealing with any type of disruption. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor. Would any other councillor like to speak to the item? Okay. A right of reply? You're the mover. Would you like a right of reply? No? Okay, lovely. Thank you. I now put that in motion. All those in favour? That is carried. Okay, item 8.1, record of councillor meetings. There are no speakers on this item. Before we move the motion, does any councillor have a question of the officers? Okay, there is an officer's report set out in the agenda papers. I am calling for a motion. Do I have a mover? Councillor Alicia? There is, yeah, there's a slight amendment. Away you go.
Thanks, Mayor. I'm moving with an amendment, thank you, suggested by yourself. That Council 1 receives and notes record of councillor meetings report as detailed in this officer report with the following amendments. A, item 3, to reflect Councillor Elizabeth Neely as Mayor and Councillor Peter Castaldo as Deputy Mayor. And B, item 9, to correct the spelling of Councillor Castaldo's surname. Thanks, Mayor.
Lovely. Thanks very much. And I will second that. Does any other councillor wish to speak to the item? Okay. I'm putting that in motion. All those in favour? And those against. That is carried. Thank you. Okay. Item 8.2, Audit and Risk Committee minutes and annual report. There is one speaker to the item. So got that. David Mulholland, you're coming up and speaking against the item. Thank you, David. You have 2 minutes.
Oh, well, no worries. Thanks, Alice. Bragg acknowledges the important role of the Audit and Risk Committee and thanks the independent members and officers for their work. However, Bragg has several serious governance concerns with this report. First, Council is being asked to endorse recommendations based on unconfirmed minutes. While noting minutes is normal, endorsing outcomes, particularly the appointment of the chair, before those minutes are confirmed is not best practice and undermines procedural integrity. It is also concerning that all recommendations in the draft minutes, although being moved and seconded, there is no record of vote whether motion has been adopted or lost. Second, there are clear inconsistencies in term dates. The report states the chair's term ends on the 30th of September 2025. The recommendation seeks endorsement to 30th of September 2026, and the annual report lists the term ending in 2027. These contradictions require clarification before endorsement. Third, the report claims there are no financial implications. That is difficult to reconcile with an expanded audit program, reopened medium risk findings, extended internal audit contracts, and increased compliance obligations. At minimum, indirect cost and resourcing impacts have not been acknowledged. Fourth, despite references to strong progress, the report identifies ongoing weaknesses. I won't list those. Finally, strategic risks are reviewed only every 4 years. In the current environment of cyber risks, insurance volatility, and major infrastructure disruption, that cycle is inadequate. Given the annual report identifies the North East Link project as a strategic risk, can Council confirm whether serious incidents have been referred to the Audit and Risk Committee? Thank you.
Thanks very much, David. All right. Before we move the motion, are there any questions of officers by councillors at this point? Okay, there is an officer's report that's set out in the agenda. Do I have a mover for this motion? Moved, Councillor Mary O'Kane. Is there a seconder? Councillor Matt Wood. Councillor Mary, would you like to speak to the item? Away you go.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to speak to the annual report specifically and give an overview of the proceedings for the last 12 months, 13 months. So for the period of 1st of December 24 to the 30th of November 25, ARC, the Audit and Risk Committee, have fulfilled, in my opinion, its main function of providing assurance to the community and relevant government agencies that Council has complied with relevant legislation and is effectively managing its strategic and enterprise risks with an eye to learning and improvement. It did this through reviewing and providing independent, relevant advice on reports of Council's internal audit, which was conducted by the independent auditor, audit consultants ASTA, external audits by state government agencies, and self-audits. The committee's work is conducted according to a plan of reports, of which 24-25 has now been completed and 25-26 is on track. The committee underwent significant change in this time with two new independent members, Marilyn Kearney and John Kivaledis, being appointed, and Greg Rimmer Hollyman departing. Additionally, two new councillors, Councillor Wood and myself, have come on board, and Lisa Young has also been recently joined. In my opinion, this is a strong committee with complementary expertise across financial, cybersecurity, and council governance spheres. In the annual report prepared by the Chair, who sits on several LGA ARCs, audit and risk committees, she notes the very high level of discussion on matters brought before the committee, which she believes has resulted in tangible benefits and assurance to the community and council. She appreciates the quality and extent of work undertaken by council staff through the leadership of our CEO, and is grateful for the excellent support provided by the committee's Council Services Risk and Assurance Unit. The committee reviews thousands of pages of reports and engages in in-depth discussions on many, many issues, too many to be summarised. Important issues to raise from this annual report were oversight of all audit findings, and the status of action plans was maintained at every meeting. As of the 1st of December, 33 internal audit recommendations remain open and are worked on. Council work on enterprise risk management was assessed as continuing on its maturation trajectory, and amendments to Council's strategic risk appetites were reviewed and found consistent with other Victorian councils, but I think Councillor Wood will speak to them in a moment. And okay, just to summarise, due to strong performance, Astor's contract has been extended for a further 2 years until September 27. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Matt.
Thanks, sir. Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor O'Kane, for the summary. Very good. I just acknowledge the speaker's questions. There was a lot in what you put up there. I think if we put that to officers, it'd be taken on notice in any case. If you could email that through to me, I'll make sure that's seen too. Thank you. So following on from Councillor O'Kane's summary there, I'd like to add a few practical examples from the December Audit and Risk Committee meeting that demonstrate the type of scrutiny occurring at a committee level. But firstly, I want to confirm my endorsement of Marilyn Kearney as the chair. Marilyn continues to foster an efficient, professional and constructive environment, which allows the committee to ask the right questions and focus on continuous improvement. So at the meeting, one issue discussed was working with children checks and police checks more broadly across council operations. And while checks are completed at the commencement of all employment, the committee questioned whether they're undertaken on an ongoing or out-of-cycle basis, particularly in light of recent child safety incidents across different sectors. It was confirmed that out-of-cycle checks are not currently occurring. Importantly, the CEO advised that Council has now appointed a dedicated child safety officer who is undertaking a comprehensive review of procedures and policies, and this work will come back to ARC in June. The committee also discussed Council's digital transformation and strategic planning work, focusing on audio-visual. Sorry, that was just a little joke. with further material coming to ARC in March. The committee appropriately questioned the scale of investment in new systems, noting the broader sector experience of repeatedly re-implementing platforms and sought assurance around value, timing and governance, and that was noted by management. With regard to OH&S, the committee considered the new psychological health regulations and questioned whether council has sufficient capability and resources to meet its obligations. And while management advised current frameworks are sound, the committee acknowledged that the rollout plan for next year will be significant, and this is known and acknowledged by management. I also raised concerns that reported OH&S numbers currently do not include external contractors, such as parking inspectors who wear the council badge. The committee queried incident reporting processes for contractors, and it was confirmed these are not consistently captured. Management acknowledged this is an area for improvement, is reviewing reporting mechanisms to ensure contractor incidents are visible to council.
Thank you, Matt. You have had your 2 minutes. Yes,
Thank
thank you
you,
very much. That's all right. Did any other councillor wish to speak to the item? Councillor Rick, followed by Councillor Alida.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, I won't reiterate previous comments made. I think the committee is doing a good job, and I thank the independent members and the councillor delegates that are on there for the work that they are doing. Just a couple of things emerged to me that key reports, such as the Watermark Performance Update and the Investment Strategy and Policy, those are reports that need to come directly to council. So I've made a direct request of that to our Chief Executive and CFO. The audit committee there is to guide compliance and policy and structure, but critical things around how major operations and contracts are managed, our investment policy settings, particularly the audit committee is just not in a position, particularly the independent members, to understand the full raft of financial challenges, capital project issues, community expectations. That's why the investment strategy really has to come to council. Anyhow, I've made that request of our CE and CFO. That'll be coming to us. But I just thought it was important for the community to know that, that the audit committee is not a substitute for critical work that has to be undertaken at the council level. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Deputy. And Councillor Alida wishes to speak.
Councillor Garotti's covered off on what I was
Okay. And Councillor Elizabeth would like to speak as well. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Mayor. Not used to holding the microphone. I feel like, should I start singing? I won't sing. Yeah, it's a good report. I wanted to just mention the strategic risks, the 4 new ones that have been included. I think it's good to see that the committee is on top of this so that we are anticipating potential issues well in advance. The sector-wide skill shortages, things like that are extremely important to get ahead of. They can threaten service delivery, making it harder for councils to meet growing community expectations, which are a big reality for us. In terms of cyber security, local government is increasingly targeted. Okay. Some IT changes this evening. They're targeted due to essential services and often constrained IT resources. Councils are having to upgrade their systems at a huge financial cost, but these are big decisions that have to be made. Industrial relations changes can affect workforce stability, productivity and costs, particularly where councils rely on specialised roles. And the insurance challenges linked to environmental, social and government factors, they're important because they can divide up premiums, reduce coverage, availability, exposing councils to greater financial and operational risk. So I look forward to seeing the discussion in this space as substitute. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Councillor Elizabeth. Does any councillor wish to speak to the item? Okay. Councillor Mary is the mover. Would you like a right of reply? Okay. Okay, I now put that in motion. All those in favour? And that is carried. Item 8.3, Banyule Cemeteries Trust Financial Report. There are no speakers on this item. We do have a motion in front of us. Does any councillor have a question of the officers? Okay, there is an officer's report set out in the papers. Do I have a mover for the motion? Councillor Rick Garotti, do I have a seconder? Councillor Elizabeth Neely. Okay, Councillor Rick, would you like to speak to the item? Councillor Liz, would you like to speak to the item? Okay. Does any other councillor wish to speak? Okay, I put that in motion. All those in favour?
I was just going to make a very quick comment.
So thank you, Mayor. Just a very quick comment to say that myself and Councillor Curry and yourself did go and visit Warringal Cemetery on the 12th of December and had an extensive tour and explanation of all of the opportunities that were being explored. I'd like to thank the officers who showed us around and also are taking great care with all of the issues that they're exploring to keep the trust financially moving forward. And I thank them for their proactive work on this. Thank you.
Thanks very much. I now put the motion. All those in favour? That is carried. Item 8.4, Banyule Cemeteries Trust Operational Report. There are no speakers on this item. I made a mistake. I'm going to correct this time. Trust members, before we move the motion, are there any questions of officers? Okay. There is an officer's report before us set out in the agenda papers. I'm calling for a motion. Do I have a mover? Trust member Alida McKern. Is there a seconder? Trust member Mark Di Pasquale. Trust member Alida, would you like to speak to the item? Okay. Yes.
Thank you, Joseph. And thank you, Mayor. I would like this opportunity to applaud council officers' emphasis on the urban forestry team for recommending a position to retain a row of mature lily-pilly trees in lieu of the installation of 16 new grave sites. Decisions like this, I believe, aren't easy to make, particularly given that council and we as trust members have financial management decisions to make with respect to Banyule's largest cemetery, particularly against environmental benefits. Given the increasing pressures for local burials with urban densification in our middle ring suburbs, this adds further pressure. However, a position I've long maintained is that urban cemeteries, while needing to be respected as peaceful contemplative spaces, will increasingly be considered as an important part of our public green space network and offer a means to alleviate a lack of commensurate open space, offering public access, areas for walking, sitting, urban cooling with large shade trees, and habitat for local flora and fauna. So while I agree that the opportunity to expand interment locations in the cemetery should continue to be explored, I think it should continue to be carefully weighed against retaining public open space and considering the environmental benefits, particularly in relation to tree retention, as it provides a different type of park setting that will have increasing importance as public green space, given that it sits right alongside the Heidelberg Major Activity Centre in an area of Heidelberg that has limited neighbourhood open space. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Trust member. Trust member Mark, did you want to speak to the item? Oh, okay. Would any other trust member like to speak to the item? All right. I'm put that in motion. All those in favour? That is carried. Item 8.5, award of contract number 2026, provision of security, technical and monitoring services. There are no speakers on this item. Before we move the motion, does any councillor have a question of the officers? Okay, there's a report before us set out in the agenda papers. I'm calling for a motion. Do I have a mover for this item? Councillor Mary O'Kane. Do I have a seconder for this item? Councillor Matt Wood. Okay. Councillor Mary, would you like to speak to the item as the mover? Councillor Matt, would you like to speak to the item as the mover? Okay, I now put that in motion. All those in favour? That is carried. Item 8.6, award of panel contract number 1475, 2025, hire of plant with operator. There are no speakers on this item. Councillors, before we move the motion, does any councillor have a question of the officers? Councillor Matt.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just in light of the audit and risk summary earlier, we're talking about contractor reporting from an OH&S point of view to the relevant director. Given that this panel includes elements of general risk work, what are we doing in terms of requiring our contractors to report incidents of near misses and actual incidents in the workplace? Thank you, Mayor.
Over to you. Yeah, Director Darren Bennett. Thank you. Director of Assets.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Wooden, through you, Mayor. It's important to note that this contract is about awarding a contract to a panel of contractors. At that time, they're responding to a specification, which they've now responded to, and that's what the council has asked to make a decision tonight. More broadly, I'm aware that the additional reporting for all of our contractors about OH&S, near misses and the like, it'd be appropriate for that to be considered when we review our contract documentation. We're planning to do that over the next 6 months or so. That'd be the appropriate time because it's important to include those reporting obligations within the specification as the market responds to those specifications. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And thank you, Mayor. I'll just add to that.
Director.
Also, in all of our contracts with all cross council, there's ONHS obligations that those contractors need to provide council with, no matter the size of the particular contract, whether it be a service or a construction contract. What we'll be looking at is whether there's a possibility where they can report more regularly for incidents or near misses that occur as part of their work for Banyule City Council. There is a number of contracts where that already happens at the moment. We're looking at doing that more broadly and setting up a system whereby that could be done more effectively and efficiently in the future.
Good, thank you. Okay. Did any other councillor wish to speak to the item? Councillor Rigrotti.
It's a Brownie at questions.
Oh, sorry, we haven't moved yet. Okay, so my apologies. Okay, sorry. Lucky you know what I'm doing. You guys know what I'm doing. This is good. All right. Okay, so do I have a mover? Let's do that. Do I have a mover? Would you like to move the item? Happy to move the item. Okay, lovely. So Councillor Rick is moving the item. Who would like to be a seconder? Who would like to second the item? Anyone? Anyone? Councillor Alicia just beat you to it. Councillor Matt. Okay. Councillor Rick, would you like to speak to the item? How would I just tick as I go?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Look, in terms of the substance of the item, which is seeking council approval for those panelists, certainly in terms of the material that's being provided in the report and confidentially, I'm satisfied that we're getting good value for money and thank officers for pulling together that report. Thank you also to Councillor Wood just for raising the query, broader query and arising out of the Audit and Risk Committee around contractor management and the responsibilities that council has to ensure that contractors are doing the right thing by their staff. I note that that also has quite a bit of correlation with the work that the innovative leading work that this council's done around the modern slavery. And so in terms of how that work is undertaken going forward, I think there's an opportunity to look at that in the context of our modern slavery arrangements. both in terms of contractors and service providers here in Australia, critical, obviously. And we want to make sure that whether it's a manual worker or a contractor worker, that they're looked after. But personally, I think that our obligation extends to any worker in the world, and those that may be working on EVs or solar panels or any number of things. So I'd just say that we're doing a good piece of work in the context of modern slavery, and highly commend the councillor for raising that.
Mm.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Alicia, would you like to speak to the item? No. Would any other councillor like to speak to the item? I'm going to take that as a no. I now put that in motion. All those in favour? That is carried. Item 8.7, Quarterly Financial Report, December 2025. There are no speakers on this item. Councillors, are there any questions of officers? Okay, there is a report before us set out in the papers. I'm calling for a motion. Do I have a mover? Anyone who wants to move? Councillor Rick? Great. Councillor Rick. All right. As a seconder, who would like to second? Councillor Matt. Okay. Councillor Rick, as the mover, would you like to speak to the item? Okay. Councillor Matt, would you like to speak? Okay. Would any other councillor like to speak to the item? Okay. I'll put that in motion. All those in favour? That is carried. Item 9.1, Advisory Committee Cyclical Meeting Record. There are no speakers on this item. Before we move, do we have any questions of officers? Any councillor has a question of officers? Okay, there is a report set out in the papers. I'm calling for a motion. Do I have a mover? Councillor Mary O'Kane. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Elizabeth Neely. Councillor Mary, would you like to speak to the item? Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to speak to the Connected Communities Advisory Committee, of which I'm chair, and just give a little rundown of that. So, firstly, on that, I'd like to thank Council Officer Sharon Prinsey for her excellent work in structuring, researching, and coordinating and administering this important Connected Communities Advisory Committee that combines members representing multicultural, all abilities, LGBTIQA+, and age-friendly community. Branching out from this is the from this very large core committee are 4 champion groups, which are chaired by committee members, and then 5 project working groups comprised of both committee members and champions. The committee and related groups have a huge, fast-paced and very well-structured agenda. In the 5 practical projects, project groups are working, officers are working, committee members are working with officer teams across several council areas to conduct advocacy on train station accessibility, identify features to ensure accessibility to Banyuls buildings and open spaces for all, update council's community engagement policy and toolkit, work on developing a diversity communication framework, and reviewing Banyuls inclusive community policy. So it's a very, very broad set of work projects that they're engaging in, and a lot of different moving pieces. But it is the quality of these projects that has also been valued by the community members, and they are stretching themselves thin trying to want to participate in all of them. But they are very well managed processes that are producing some exciting results. And again, thanks to the amazing committee members, the phenomenal work that the council officers are doing, and it's a really, really exciting committee. Even though we had concerns about its size and its workability in the beginning, it is working very, very well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mary. That is great news. Councillor Elizabeth, as the seconder, would you like to speak to the item? Fabulous. No other councillor. Councillor Alicia would like to speak with the item.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. I agree with the comments that have been made by Councillor O'Kane. I'd just like to add that I've attended all of the committee meetings, and I'd like to comment on the professionalism, the exceptional contributions that these groups make. They're all very well run, very well attended. We get lots of great feedback, some that we're not expecting and some that I think we would expect. I hope that I get to all of these meetings again in the near future, and we have a couple of representatives of those groups in the audience today, and we do see them continuously because they turn up to other events. And it just shows you what an engaged community we have, and I really appreciate them. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor. Any other councillor wish to speak? Okay, I put that in motion. All those in favour? That is carried. Item 9.2, Early Childhood Services Reforms. There are no speakers on this item. Are there any questions of officers from councillors? Okay, we have a report set out in the papers. I'm calling for a motion. Do I have a mover on this item? Councillor Elizabeth Neely. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Alicia Curry. Councillor Elizabeth, would you like to speak to the item?
Thank you. Hope there's nothing moving behind me this time. This report is responding to the Victorian Government's Best Start, Best Life reforms, which provide extended funded hours in early childhood education. Council reviewed its infrastructure limitations, workforce challenges, and the expectation to provide sustainable, high quality services. The decision to cease the delivery at Joyce was not made lightly, and looked at all the community need and the limitations that I just mentioned. All affected families have been supported with alternatives, and the Greensboro area, which has had a recent upsurge in early childhood centres, there are 8 within 2 kilometres, and then there are 25 within a 5-kilometre radius. Council is redistributing its resources to support vulnerable children and families, redeploying staff and maintaining a high or higher service delivery at our other services in the Heidelberg West area and its immediate surrounds. Strengthening service delivery with these new roles provides a focus on pedagogy as a teacher. We're always talking about that reflective practice curriculum to meet diverse needs and compliance, as well as strengthening community partnerships. And these sorts of roles are really can be so critical to really positive changes in these centres. So it's been such a thorough process, and the Director Tobacco and his team have worked really hard to ensure that all staff and families have been supported very well and transparently. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Alicia is the seconder. Would you like to speak to the item? Some don't. Okay. Any other councillor wish to speak? All right. There is a motion. All those in favour? That is carried. Item 10.1. Submission to the inquiry into renewable and affordable energy for apartments. There are 2 speakers on this item. So we have Jai Sanford addressing the council in person and speaking for the recommendation. So Jai, you have 2 minutes to speak.
Thank you. And thanks everyone for the time to speak. I think the submission is solid on planning controls and design, but the inquiry itself is actually about, I guess, access and equity. So it's about who can actually access those affordable renewable energy things. At the moment, the draft focuses mostly on future buildings and doesn't actually focus on renters and lower income households like the inquiry asks for. So I guess I encourage council to consider, I guess, strengthening it so existing residents aren't left behind. So things like supporting no upfront cost finance schemes, which can be repaid through rates or sale. So owners' corps can install solar, batteries and efficiency upgrades in existing buildings, potentially recommending mandatory disclosure of building energy performance at a sale or lease, so renters and buyers aren't unknowingly stuck with high bills. Adjourn. Actually benefit from shared rooftop solar, and also allowing for fairer feed-in arrangements. A right to request electrification and renewable upgrades for renters as well. Supporting shared or community-owned infrastructure, like microgrids, to improve reliability in multi-unit dwellings, and also backing in a minimum energy performance standard, which we have some of in the state, but asking the state government to do more. I think that this would allow Banyule to keep showing that we are leaders in renewable energy, and I support the direction of the submission currently, but I think you'd need to strengthen it.
Okay, thanks very much, Jai. Thank you. And Pippa Griffith is also addressing council in person and speaking for the recommendation. Pippa, please come up to the lectern. You have 2 minutes to speak.
Thank you. Renewable energy should be available to everyone, to every family, not just because it is more sustainable, but also because it's cheaper to run and will help with cost of living pressures. While so many people are hurting because of the increased cost of living, this way of reducing costs is a good enough reason on its own. I have experience of how much cheaper it can be. We were fortunate enough to move from a drafty home where we had gas for heating, cooking, and boosting hot water to a well-insulated all-electric home with solar and batteries. Last year, our total power bill, which includes charging our electric car, was just over half what it was back in 2014 in that previous home. If I include the rebates everyone received last year, it was less than half. 11 years later, when you'd expect to be paying more because of inflation, our running costs were actually much less. The government's recent planning changes make it harder for people living in apartments to benefit from the savings in renewable energy. So I'm supporting Banyule's submission to this inquiry and the things that Jai had to say. But I do have a couple of questions. What do the first and third dot points actually mean? The first says a reduction in fossil gas use to all electric apartments from 40% to 20%. Surely gas use in all electric apartments is zero, as by definition, all electric apartments don't use any gas. So what is this statement actually trying to say? There's been a reduction in gas use because more apartments are all electric? A reduction to 20% of what? The number of new apartments? The proportion of all apartments? And there are similar questions about the reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. Dot point 3. Please adjust these statements so that the meaning is clearer. Then I can really support this submission, which is important in helping to make sure that more people can take advantage of the benefits of more affordable renewable energy.
That's lovely. Thanks very much, Pippa. Okay. So, councillors, we do have a motion, but are there any questions of officers at this point? Councillor Alicia?
Right, thank you through you, Mayor, to the appropriate officer or director. Just to answer the Pippa's questions and that definitive answer, what do the first and third dot points mean, and what does the percentage difference mean from 40 to 20? And second to that, if it's a minor adjustment, are we able to do that on the back end to put the submission through to make it clearer? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cullery, and through you, Mayor. The first dot point, a reduction of fossil gas use to all electric apartments, identifies the transition space that the planning framework's in. So it's still the case when this data was collated that it was permissible to build an apartment that had access to gas. We know that with new developments, there are changing laws in that space that will accelerate that exponentially as the number of apartments they won't be permitted to be connected to gas and will
Mm.
by default become all electric. So we can certainly look to clarify that in our submission. Likewise, the third dot point is again that moving from one space to the other, so a reduction in greenhouse gas emissions of the developments. There are different ESD requirements under the different categories of buildings. And again, we've lost a little bit of control as to how to implement that through our local policy. But that was measuring the reduction in the emissions these developments were having over time as they adopted more sustainability measures. So it is a work in progress, and that's why some of these aren't necessarily reduced to zero as yet, but that is the hope in the longer term.
Thank you. Was the second question answered? Okay. All right. Okay. Do we have any other questions from councillors at this point? All right. So we do have an officer's report before us, and there are some amendments. So, Councillor Alicia, were you going to, Councillor Mary? Councillor Mary is going to go through the amendments. Okay. Mhm.
Thank you, Mayor. So I'll run through the proposed amendment, and then we can work on adding this latest point.
Mhm.
Yep. Okay. So the motion is that Council adopt the submission attachment 1 to be provided to the Victorian Legislative Assembly Environment and Planning Inquiry into renewable and affordable energy for apartments, with the following amendments: provide clarity on statistics, included on page 1 of the report. That's A. B. Include a review of the Owners Corporation legislation to ensure that the opportunities for renewable energy sources cannot be prevented by owner corporation rules. C. A response on how to overcome additional challenges faced by renters and social housing tenants when accessing renewable electricity, and how energy supply options impact different groups based on tenure, income, housing type, and location, including 1. Support government-backed no upfront cost finance schemes repaid through rates, levies, or at sale to allow owners' corporations to install solar batteries and efficiency upgrades in existing buildings. 2. Explore mandatory disclosure of residential building energy performance at sale or lease, so renters and buyers can make informed choices and avoid inefficient homes. 3. Address embedded network and export pricing barriers so apartment residents can fairly benefit from shared rooftop solar, including fair feed-in arrangements and retailer choice. 4. Support minimum energy performance standards and coordinated building-wide retrofits for existing apartments, insulation, hot water, and switchboard upgrades to reduce demand and ensure households can access affordable renewable energy. 5. Consider a process for how renters can work with landlords for renewable and electrification upgrades for renters and apartment residents. 6. Consider supporting public or community-owned shared energy infrastructure, microgrids, community batteries, and virtual power plants to improve affordability, reliability, and price stability in multi-units. Number 2, note that the inquiry is currently open to the public and inviting submissions until the 27th of February 2026 at this address. Do I need to read out the full address? And I propose a point 3. Point 3, make any clarifications necessary to ensure that any data provided in the submission is clearly unambiguous. Okay, and just to repeat number 3, make any clarifications necessary to ensure that any data provided in the submission is clearly unambiguous.
Full stop. Probably don't need the word clearly. Okay.
Just check the spelling of unambiguous, please.
That's it.
Beautiful. Do we need the word clearly? Just unambiguous. Big U-S.
Just take it away clearly to pour.
Yeah. Big U-S. Are you
Just make it ambiguous.
another U after the O? Great. Perfect. And please take out the word clearly.
That's a double.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay. So you're moving that, Councillor Mary, that you're the mover. I'm the mover. Okay. Could I have a seconder for this item? Councillor Alicia Curry. Okay. Councillor Mary, as the mover, would you like to speak to the item?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll just say a couple of words briefly that firstly, I'm very grateful to the officers for putting this submission together. My understanding or our understanding is that they did this on short notice and with very little time. And they've got it before us. My analysis is somewhat similar to, well, it is similar actually to Speaker Jai Sanford, in that the submission as it stands could be expanded to include. Its focus at the moment is on future builds, but what happens or what does it mean for current builds and how they move into the future? And also to specifically address the link between affordable and renewable energy and renters and people in lower socioeconomic situations. And I also thank Jai for putting forward some very concrete suggestions about how that may be, how the submission may be strengthened, and very grateful to the rest of the councillor group also on our discussions also for how this may be very an approach that a councillor can actually support with all the complexities that it takes to put forward concrete suggestions like this. So very happy to support. Thank you.
Councillor Alicia.
Thanks, Mayor, through you. Thanks to the speakers. You both made really good points, and we've taken a lot of those on board. I agree that the report is pretty good in its current format, and these adjustments in costs, and we think that particularly apartments, we have seen anecdotally that owners' corporations can get in the way of a functional outcome based on the aesthetic look of solar panels, etc. So I think some of our amendments have spoken to those things. I don't think it was exhaustive. I think there's more to say. If we haven't covered off your point in our amendments, you're quite welcome to make a submission. It is open. Hooray, hallelujah. It's finally open while we've had an opportunity to submit in the time frame. And the deadline being the 27th of February leaves it open for people, and particularly those that are being impacted of this are particularly impacted and feel that they can't access some of these options. I think it would be great if you put in the submission in your own name as well. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much. Does any other councillor wish to speak? Councillor Peter Caspalbo?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to first acknowledge the contributions of the two speakers, both tonight, but also reaching out to councillors prior to the meeting so we could consider all of the things that you were able to identify to strengthen this. I'd firstly like to support the submission that council officers have put together, a very well considered amendments as well that my fellow councillors have put forward. Government plays an integral role in market setting and bringing down the cost of bills, and in this case, the ability to bring down the future costs of energy that is aligned with reducing climate impact. Credit should be given where it's due, and getting out of gas policies of the state government have been a game changer going forward. Minimum standards will help as well. And the evidence is starting to flow through council data. However, the state government has stopped an essential, well-considered planning strategy that councils have worked on across the state, the Elevating ESD Standards planning amendment, which is essential for apartments and all other dwellings. We should be building our new homes to very high standards. And if you don't build good design in early, retrofitting is almost always going to be orders of magnitude more in costs. Finally, speaking to the amendments, these are valuable additions to the submission, supporting existing dwellings in the amendment. We need to find ways for everyone to be able to participate in the clean energy transition. Thanks to all that contributed to this document.
Thanks very much, Councillor Peter, and Councillor Leader wishes to speak as well. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to councillors who I think have presented a solid rationale as to why we're going down this path and why we're putting in a submission to the Victorian Parliament. Thank you too to our speakers. It's good to see our speakers making such considered statements. It's obvious that you put a lot of time into the reports. Additional points to consider in terms of undertaking this inquiry. It's interesting to observe that the Victorian Parliament has stated that the uptake of home solar systems in Victoria has primarily been confined to detached housing. It is a welcome inquiry, given that multi-unit dwelling is indeed on the increase thanks to urban consolidation. Indeed, more than a quarter of Banyule dwellings are now medium to high density. That's a significant statistic, and it is increasing. In addition, based on the 2021 census data, approximately 25.2 of households in the city of Banyule were renters at that time, and that's likely increased as well. Of which about 3.6% is represented by social housing. Whilst this does represent a lower proportion of renters in comparison to Greater Melbourne, which has 29.2% of households renting, it does give us a clear signal that we need to do a lot more to make renewable energy options much more accessible to multi-unit dwellings. So I'm certainly happy to support the motion with its amendments this evening. And once again, thank you to the speakers for their considered responses.
Thanks very much, Councillor. Councillor Rick would like to speak.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to thank and acknowledge the Victorian Parliament, firstly, for actually conducting this inquiry. One thing I've been concerned about for quite a period of time is low-income households and renters being abandoned or left behind in our transition to a low-carbon economy. And I think with this inquiry, there's an opportunity to explore and address that in the context of those that are renting and living within apartments. What I would suggest too is that particularly in a number of those points in our recommendation, they would have application for those renting outside of apartments. And later this year, Council will go through a process of reviewing and updating our community emissions reduction plan. And I'd highly encourage our officers to look at this recommendation and look at what Council can be doing in our community emissions reduction plan to get traction on some of those points. The reality is that we cannot afford to let people be stranded, left behind because they're renting or low income as we transition. So I think this is vitally important work, and very grateful to Councillor Mary O'Kane for helping to take a lead with the councillor group in formulation of this amended recommendation. Thank you also to Jai. I think you can see that the community does have input into our decision making, and we certainly respect and encourage value input from all. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other councillor wish to speak? Okay. Now, Councillor Mary, as the mover, would you like a right of reply?
Okay, all right. I'm going to now put put the motion. All those in favour? That is carried.
Item 11.1, Collins Street, Yallambie, request for reinstated access. There are no speakers on this item. Before we move the motion, does any councillor have a question of officers? Thanks, Councillor Matt.
Well, thank you, Mayor. To the relevant officer, I'm sure it's going to be Director Swan. So in the report, it says that officers requested that a study be undertaken during the preparation of the UDLP, the landscape plan. I'm just unclear on the sequence of events here, because in the recommendation, we're asking that they conduct a study. So I'll just bundle a few questions together for ease of transfer of microphone. I'll let you talk to it. So I'm wondering, has Nell actually completed a traffic modelling study in this regard? If not, how can they make a decision without access to any clear data? And if so, why hasn't the information been provided to us? And if that might be the case, is it reasonable for Nell to withhold such information from council? Thank you, Mayor.
Mark's walking slowly, so I've got a bit more time. Thank you, Councillor Wood, and through you, Mayor. So in terms of the sequence of events, we did first request traffic modelling and data on this through the UDLP consultation, and that's the Urban Design and Landscape Plan, back in 2022 as part of our submission. In the response to our submission, in what they provided as a consultation summary report, they remained silent on that request at that time. We did make a subsequent request earlier this year in January, but it is fair to suggest that they declined to provide this detail. But we did get a response from North East Link project saying that throughout the life cycle of the project, they had undertaken traffic modelling and road safety assessments to ensure residents and emergency services can access all homes efficiently, and that Cree Street, which is adjacent to this street, and surrounding streets maintain safe and reliable emergency routes. I couldn't speak to why they haven't provided a copy of the modelling or study that they have done. The correspondence from North East Link says that they're satisfied that the overseeing regulatory authorities, being the Minister for Planning, has accepted their design. And from that perspective, they feel comfortable proceeding forward. Officers are also interested in the detail of that assessment. And so it will obviously be beneficial for all if that information were forthcoming.
There was just a final part of the question that in your professional capacity, do you think it's reasonable that they withhold that information from council?
I'm not sure whether I'd have a view of reasonableness. The project is overseen by the state government and experts that consider the design and assessment of it. So I guess in that respect, I probably don't have a view about whether it's reasonable or not reasonable. It would certainly be more transparent if that information were available and might provide greater comfort to both council and the community about the rigour of the assessment that was done.
Follow-up question?
Thank you for that. Assuming the community might consider it to be unreasonable, can I ask the CEO, have we escalated this to Null management and even our state MPs about the lack of clarity in the information that's coming through? And if not, can we?
Thanks. And through you, Mayor. Um, we have raised it informally with the NALP management after the petition was received. I have a meeting with the NALP CEO this Thursday, so I will be raising this item, particularly that's come to the council meeting tonight. In regards to our local members, I would have to check around how strongly we've advocated on that. And if we haven't, we can make sure that we do raise it, particularly after tonight's meeting.
Mhm. Okay. Okay. Thank you. All right. Does any other councillor have any questions at all on this? Okay. Calling for a motion. Do I have a mover for the motion? We do have an amendment. Councillor Mack.
Can't go home with it. You can't go home with it. Okay, Councillor Matt, please share your.
You know you've made it. Okay, so the motion, I'll work through the motion here. Are some amendments. So point one, right to North East Link Project Minister for Transport Infrastructure and the member for Ivanhoe requesting undertaking detailed traffic modelling and point A, B, C and D as is. We're adding point two, if traffic modelling is not provided with 3 months from the request, Council will receive a further report on appropriate next steps. And number three, right to emergency service organisations seeking their view on access concerns or issues with the changed road access to the Colleen Street area.
Colleen has one L, please.
There's no second, is he?
No.
So moved.
Thank you, Matt. Could I please have a seconder? Councillor Alicia Curry. Councillor Matt, would you like to speak to the item?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. Look, this talks to some broader issues that we've got around NAL, and I'm happy to say that the community has got a real trust issue with NAL, and we've just heard that the information might be there, it might not be there, but it's a case of we've got this sorted. Just back away, we'll sort it out. We'll get it done, and frankly, it's just not good enough. There's lots of incidents where this scenario is playing out. We're going to hear from one in another section here. But to think that they're making these decisions without adequate data and not allowing authorities that are council representing the people access to that information is appalling, quite frankly. So I'm happy with this motion. We're going to continue to bring it to this group and make sure that the community know that we're fighting hard to make sure that we're mitigating the impacts that we're all feeling. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks very much, Councillor.
On you, the second page. Yeah, that's right. I knew there was something missing. There was 2 further points to the recommendation, and point 4 is a new one. Further report be presented to council advising the outcomes of the resolution for what we've just spoken about. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor Matt. Councillor Alicia is the seconder.
Thank you. Just speaking directly to the residents of Colleen Street and regarding the petition, it's one of the things that council struggles with. It's either a council action or it's council advocacy. And what is our obligation to our community to provide that transparency and seek outcomes for the community? So in this case, we're going down the advocacy route to work out what the options are. We're struggling to get back the data. It's very hard for council to come to a decision whether that means that we need to do further work in this space. So bear with us while we still research and advocate to North East Link to find out what we can do, and this will come back. I agree with Council Wood that this also speaks to the complaints that we get regarding North East Link. It's continuous. We're going to see this continuing through the through the project construction. And we expect that we will be that space in between. If you bring us issues, we will definitely follow them up the chain for you. Thank you.
Thanks very much, councillor. All right. Would any other councillor like to speak to the item? Okay. Councillor Matt, as the mover, would you like a right of reply at all? No? Okay. I'm going to put that in motion. All those in favour? That is carried. Item 14.1, Notice of Motion, North East Link Project, Monitoring of Health Impacts. There are 2 speakers on this item. So our first speaker is Michelle Jovis, who is here speaking in person for the recommendation. Great. Thanks, Michelle. You have 2 minutes to speak.
Thank you. I want to thank Council and Councillor Curry for this motion, which deals with the health impacts of the NELP project. The air emissions are construction dust, cement dust, and diesel fumes indicated by PM10 and PM25, noting that diesel fumes are a Class 1 carcinogen with a soot-containing polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, which can lead to lung cancer. NELP has a number of air monitoring stations measuring PM10, located at St Martin's, Edward Street, K Court, and just south of Windsor Reserve. However, despite clouds of dust impacting residents and surrounding areas, no air quality exceedances have been recorded from any of these testing sites, which feels impossible, particularly at Windsor Reserve, when this location is subject to polluting air emissions from Greensborough Highway and the large B-double diesel trucks that exit and leave and enter the spoil shed every 90 seconds, 24/7. We are also, so it's just unbelievable, and I commend Council for asking EPA to conduct independent air monitoring. We are also heartened to the Council's calling for the tunnel exhaust stacks to be filtered. This is definitely necessary, as NELP and the EPA air quality experts agreed at the EES hearings that the north of Yallambee Road, the air quality would deteriorate by at least 3% due to NELP's operations. The tunnel exhaust must be filtered to improve air quality. I'm pleased that Council are taking proactive steps to minimise public and environmental health risks, given the many thousands that are already being adversely impacted by respiratory illness and listless children.
Thanks very much, Michelle. Thank you very much, Michelle. Thank you. You've had your 2 minutes, Michelle. Logan Farrell, you are speaking for the recommendation. Would you please approach the lectern? Thanks very much, Logan. You had 2 minutes.
Thank you, Council. I am, of course, speaking in support of this notice of motion. I would like to thank you, as the last speaker said, for bringing it. It's very evidently aimed in retaliation for what can only be described as some of the industrial scale incompetence that we've seen from the management of the North East Link project. Shamefully, this has become a necessary action by Council for a request into increased testing of our air, land, and water. The incident that probably raises for most in the community is the incident that happened last year with the polluting of Banyule Creek by dust suppressant, leaving the waterway bright cobalt blue, the chemical nature of which I don't believe has been released to the public. And the incident ended up in 4 EPA fines of $10,000 each, which we don't even know if that was enough to cover the cleanup. I think a lot of us in the community, particularly myself, are tired of hearing about, horror stories from the negative effects suffered from the dust exposure. Predominantly its effect on children and the elderly, and in particular people suffering from asthma. And whilst increased testing doesn't necessarily help the quality, it does inform a future strategy to deal with the issue. So I applaud council for stepping in when the state government's seemingly uh, not acting. And thank you.
Thank you very much, Logan, for speaking this evening. Okay, councillors, we do have a motion. Do any councillors have questions of officers at all? Councillor Mark, got a clip.
Mayor, also recently we heard there are issues with Kalparan Lakes. Is there any update or any further advice from your officers? I can take it on notice as well. Thank you, Mayor.
Director Natasha?
Thank you, through you, Mayor. I'd need to take that question on notice.
Not a problem at all. Do we have any other councillors with any other questions? Councillor Alicia?
Not sure if the mics are working or not. Question to the relevant officer through you, Mayor. How many incidents have we been publicly able to report from potential hazards from the construction of North East Link?
Director Swan? Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor, and through you, Mayor. So I'm aware of 3 incidents, 2 of which that have been attributed to the North East Link project. One in relation to the Blue Creek and the spill of a soil suppressant material. The other being the sinkhole at Burkett Reserve that was recently formed. I think is that Reserve? Yes, Burkett Reserve. And the third one was a phone incident that occurred within the creek, although the source of that has not actually been confirmed by any of the authorities, and it is a possibility that that was actually sourced from outside of the project area in the adjacent industrial land. But those are the 3 that I'm aware of.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Director Natasha. Any other questions from any other councillors? Okay. There is an officer's report set out. Calling for a motion. Do I have a mover? That's good. Councillor Aisha, moving the motion. Yeah, okay, lovely.
Thanks, Mayor. I like to move my motions. That's good. So for me, the reason I've brought this notice of motion is 2 reasons. It's council's commitment and obligation to public health and wellbeing, which was a dramatic change through our council plan last year to start integrating that into all of our plans. And it's about transparency for the public to be able to have real-time access to data that's produced that may or may not be in relation to North East Link. So the request is actually asking EPA to step in as the authority to say put these sites into Banyule. So just to note that EPA have a website which is called Checked Air and Water Quality, but there isn't one testing site in Banyule that is on their website. So we've heard from one of our speakers that they do have testing sites, and the North East Link testing sites are actually going through EPA. But the delay in that transition of data to collection, to being signed off, back to us, back to the public, is up to a year in delay. So what we're requesting is that EPA step in and put in this data technology, be responsible to it, be responsive. And if there is a hazard that's in the making and they've done the testing, that we have available this information available. And just one further note on that, I noticed that the site in Boroondara actually links back to the Boroondara council website. And if we could add that through this process as well, we'd be very happy to keep us really upfront and be able to notify our residents when there's a potential hazard through our social media and our other media outlets would be fantastic. So we have had numerous incidents of potential toxicity through air and water quality. The request to put in specific locations is really from a perception point of view about where these works are occurring currently, but we'd like the testing to continue on firstly through construction, so we'd like them ASAP, and then through the operation. We are hearing that there's going to be a deterioration in air quality, and we'd like to know exactly when that becomes a risk, because I don't think they're forward thinking enough. And North East Link commitment to testing finishes in 5 years' time. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Rick Garotti. Councillor Rick, would you like to speak to the item?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, look, very happy to be seconding this motion, and I'd just really like to thank Councillor Curry for bringing it to this chamber, for being engaged and connected in with our community on this issue, and bringing things to this chamber so that we can get things done. Well done, thank you, and very happy to back you up with it.
Thank you very much, Councillor Rick. Okay. Does any other thank you, Mark. Does any other councillor wish to speak to this item? Councillor Elizabeth Neely would like to briefly speak to the item.
Sure. Just quickly mentioning that the environmental impacts during the build so far have intensified, I guess, broader scrutiny of the project's management, and residents want to know that it's being managed appropriately. And that's, I'm assuming, what's led Councillor Curry to bring this to the chamber. So happy to support that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Would any other councillor like to speak to the item? Councillor Mark.
Mayor, just procedure. A notice of motion, do they not come in the name of a councillor, or if there's two councillors working together, to be in the name of those councillors? How come we don't do that anymore for notice of motion?
Page 1. So it is written in the papers under the motion for Councillor Alicia Curry. There we go. Okay. Okay. Any other councillor wish to speak? Okay. Mover, Councillor Alicia, would you like a right of reply?
Just something I missed saying earlier, which was that there's other councils that are impacted by North East Link, and our officers work very closely with them to find some better outcomes. Each council potentially does something different, but this is the route that we're taking to get the best results for our public. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. All right. I now put that in motion. All those in favour? That is carried. We are up to general business. Maybe we just go around the corner. Okay, so I'm going to let's start over with Councillor Mary, and we're going to work our way around the table. So Councillor Mary, you have one item. Space up, everyone. Sorry, I'm just going to interrupt. Just a heads up. It's been 2 months since our last council meeting, and therefore our last general business item. It's been more than that, actually. It's been about 11 weeks. So there have been a lot of activities that have been going on since then, and quite a few of us had actually participated in those events. So it might sound like a lot, but we have gone to a few events, and we're going to be sharing with you and possibly promoting some of the organisations that held the events. Thank you. Thanks, Councillor Mary. Away you go.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just going to quickly mention two. One that I went to today, which was for the something I think they called the opening of the courts, which was held at Holstep at their legal centre, which I think is a ritual that they usually have, in the laneways around the courts precinct. But Holstep has taken it on and used that occasion to launch a fanzine, which encapsulated all the training that they did with women on legal literacy, that is actually having concrete outcomes where participants of these legal literacy courses are actually making headways, in one case in the family court, in being able to enact her rights. So it's human rights in action, this, and I'm very proud to have been invited to that. And the second is the open day at Elsteak Mosque in Heidelberg Heights on Saturday, where we were all invited. We were invited along. It was very open, and it was also all Jewish members of the community were also invited along. And it was a very constructive, friendly, open discussion, and it was very welcoming. And we look forward to further engagement with the community throughout the year. So thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor Mary. Councillor Alicia. Thank you. I have a number of items this evening, so I'm going to move quite quickly through the first one. So firstly, I'm talking about Rosanna Library. I wasn't going to, but we will now since we've got the pictures up. So Rosanna Library opened to the public on the 21st of January, and the official opening ceremony is coming up this week, Friday at 11 a.m. I'd like to focus on the design elements, and some of my particular photos were showing the calm interior space and colour schemes that the library provides. But I'd like to acknowledge that the design features from our directors Joseph Tobacco and Natasha Swan and their respective teams in providing an aesthetically calm, pleasing outcome, and particularly in the inside, which is reflective of some of the colour schemes that we see elsewhere in Rosanna. So this week, the artwork by Kaya was just installed. So the first picture that came up was the artwork. Very beautiful piece, really interesting. My photos show that it's a very calm, easy space, but I've been told that the children's story time is a bit out of this world, and they've had between 100 and 150 participants, and the new library has the space to allow them to hold such events. So it's great that it's opened. If you haven't been down there, it's got bookable spaces. I think one of the interesting things is the podcast studio. So if you haven't visited as yet, please do. Second business item is Future Homes, and I'll read this quite quickly. So just to go through the outcome of the planning application in Mountain View Parade, Rosanna. A reminder that the Future Homes application was the first of its kind in Metro Melbourne. Councils are not decision makers. However, councils move forward with advocacy around this new planning clause, writing to members of Parliament, a motion through MAV. However, we didn't manage to get support to have the clause reviewed and feedback considered. The application was then refused by officers on the basis it did not have great sustainability outcomes, which did not match the intention of Future Homes in providing exemplary outcomes. The adaptability to the site was questionable. The matter was referred to a committee, which council officers made a submission. However, Future Homes had removed the rights of residents to be engaged in the process. Residents raised a petition which was presented to Parliament, garnering an amazing 900 signatures in about a 2-week time frame. While some of the committee recommendations incorporated some positive changes which were adopted, Council remains concerned that the committee did not consider some critical planning issues that would have gone some way to mitigating the visual and livability outcomes. This includes a setback to the southern boundary, visual bulk arising from extensive use of shear walls, overall site coverage of 60%, the lack of landscaping provision, and the visual to provide the visual foil to the building. In addition, committee did not consider other sustainability and livability concerns, such as some of the apartments being below natural ground level. So that's very concerning. Unfortunately, the development has been approved and council doesn't have a role in appealing that decision. Thank you. Sorry for that, a long one. And then thirdly, Greensborough RSL launched the Community Women's Shed on the 6th of January. Unfortunately, this is currently paused because they're looking for volunteers to help deliver that service. It was running on Tuesday, but I have been down there for this first session. It was a great launch. People were very engaged. So if you have a skill set, if you're inclined to volunteer at the Women's Shed, I suggest that you contact the Greensborough RSL, and when the Women's Shed opens again, it's open to the community. Thanks, Mayor.
Lovely, thank you. Councillor Matt.
Thank you, Mayor. Just worked out the trick. If I break it up into different sections, I get 3 minutes for each one. We've spoken a lot tonight about North East Link. I just wanted to take an opportunity just to do a bit of a summary of what's going on at the moment, and just to acknowledge what the community is experiencing right now, particularly around AJ Burkett Reserve and the Banyule Flats along the Yarra corridor. First and foremost, tonight, I hope our residents have heard collectively we're all aware, we do care, and we are working hard to mitigate the disruptions and the impacts to our parks and our rivers and our community spaces caused by this project. As a council, we take our obligation seriously to protect our public spaces, our natural environment, and the people who rely on them, and to push hard when impacts exceed what is promised, expected, or reasonable. Our community is dealing with a lot. We've heard it tonight: traffic chaos, parking issues, dust, noise, closed parks, rec facilities, sporting relocations right through the central zone of our city. Now these further disruptions at Banyule Flats and Ringle Park, and even notable changes to the Yarra River. Today, Nell have provided a video explaining the works under the river causing the bubbling, and I've shared this online, but it doesn't talk about the effects to the ecology at the riverbed or downstream. I want to take a minute to acknowledge our volunteers, the Warringal Park Run organisers, the Banyule Footy and Cricket Clubs, Kintala Dog Group, for example, who are doing a great job planning activities with limited information and constantly shifting goalposts. So I'll be calling on North East Link and their contractor Spark to step up their work with the community. I'm pleased just today they've agreed to meet with me directly on site later this week. So I've got lots of questions for them. Why there's still concrete trucks going into the sinkhole each day. There's a couple every day. I want them to explain exactly what's happening under the river and downstream. I'll be encouraging them to engage directly and consistently with the impacted clubs and talking about a pathway to full remediation. Now, a big question is, why is there a closure on the north side of the river and not the south side of the river? What's different? They just need to talk to us and engage us on this. Also acknowledging our CEO's meeting with Nell later as well. Spark did respond very early in Jan and provided financial assistance to the affected clubs, which was most welcomed. And they are looking at a package of items to assist the clubs going forward. So we're looking forward to that resolution. Whilst I'm at it, I want to acknowledge, with the greatest of respect, but clearly, that our state members have been notably quiet on this matter. Our residents are bearing the disruption while the state government has still not committed to a post-construction truck ban along Greensboro Road and Rosanna Road. There's no guarantee that this $26 billion project will ultimately deliver what's been promised. We can accept disruptions to a point, but only with the lure of this project actually delivering what's intended, and that's removing the trucks. So this council will continue to advocate strongly for our environment, our volunteers, and our residents. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Councillor Peter.
I'll join in. Very quickly, just acknowledge the 2026 Midsummer Pride, Sunset Pride Party on Friday last week. It was a lovely event for families and our community, for an important part of our community, and it was a lovely event with growing numbers into the evening, and look forward to it next year as well.
Okay, I do have 3 activities that I was part of over the last couple of months. Last month, January, I had the privilege of attending the commissioning of Reverend Chaplain Soma as the vicar of St George's Church in East Ivanhoe, along with the regular congregation, friends and the family. Reverend Chaplain Soma emigrated from South Sudan in 2003 with his young family. He has held a variety of leadership positions within various churches around Melbourne. So he was commissioned by the Right Reverend Genevieve Blackwell and is looking forward to his new role for the St George's community in Ivanhoe East. Mary Outreach Support Services, otherwise known as MOSS, is a not-for-profit housing support service which held its inaugural fundraiser on the 31st of January, so last weekend, a night at Hayes Park in Thornbury. Despite the cooler weather, it was very well attended by local communities, community leaders and sponsors, all in the name of support for the homeless. There was a lot of conversation, lots of laughter, food outlets, picnic rugs, chairs, there were kids running around, there were raffle opportunities, and of course, being a movie night, it was the movie After Dark. For almost 40 years, MOSS has provided much needed access to support, housing and social options for people who experience homelessness or are at risk of becoming homeless across Melbourne. Some statistics from 2025 include 13,300 teenagers sought help without a parent or guardian. 1 in 20 people ran out of money for food, and 1 in 10 live in poverty. 1 in 3 people who use the homelessness services were actually experiencing family violence. So we need to reduce and eliminate these statistics. So if you would like to assist or want to know more, please call 9359 5493 in order to get directly to Moss to find out a little bit more. One more thing, on Saturday, in line with the Midsummer Festival, St Mary's Tennis Club held its second Proud Mary event as part of this festival, a Saturday afternoon. It was lovely and warm. I dropped in with and joined with the many locals in the fun and games of tennis-related activities which were created by the leadership team. Some of these locals have been inspired to join as members, while others are actually long-term members of the club and just saw it as another opportunity to jump in and have a hit. If you would like to take up this sport, if you would like to increase your social network, or if you would like to just keep well, and this club sounds like an option, please contact St Mary's Tennis Club at stmarystennis56@gmail.com, or please feel free to contact myself and I can forward the information to you. Thank you. Councillor Rick?
Thank you, Mayor. Look, I just wanted to follow on from Councillor O'Kane regarding the open day that we attended on Saturday for the mosque, and in particular, just to thank our local sheikh for inviting us back in and having an open conversation, and for his work. And I think, honestly, and in particular, work with our local ward councillor there to really rebuild a relationship there. It was very powerful to be out on site, and it was an open and honest dialogue. So I feel we're in a good space, or a much better space there. And I just really wanted to highlight that and thank our ward councillor. Our CEO was in attendance, as well as our mayor. It had been a number of years since I'd gone out to the mosque, so it was an honour as well for me to reconnect with some of the personalities there. I'm certainly hoping that with Eid, that we might be invited to a dinner, Councillor O'Kane. The second thing that I just wanted to note is that an update from the library board. So I've been honoured, and with the support of fellow delegate Mayor Councillor Champion, to take on the chairing responsibility for the library board this year. It's something that I'm excited about, and a really good opportunity to work with our newly appointed CEO. Obviously, from a Banyule perspective, we've just opened the Rosanna Library, and the official opening is later this week. Quite exciting, but also big thing on the radar and the agenda is our new library at Olympia at Heidelberg West there. So really looking forward to doing what I can as chair with yourself, Joseph, as the responsible director, to achieve good outcomes. Thank you, Mayor.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Councillor. Councillor Reid, on to you. Well spoken. On Saturday night, and this certainly does indicate the variety and diversity of events our councillor group attends. I had the privilege, together with fellow councillors, Mayor Councillor Champion and Councillor O'Kane, to attend the opening of a new art exhibition at Ivanhoe Library and Cultural Hub. It's titled Whose Paradise, and displays a series of photographs by internationally acclaimed local artist Dr. Jill Orr. The exhibition sits alongside 8 Heidelberg School paintings on loan from the National Gallery of Australia till next year. The intention, side by side, is to represent a dialogue between the ideals of the 19th century Impressionist artists, and Banyule is quite privileged to be the home of Australian Impressionist art, and a modern heritage narrative. We certainly are lucky in Banyule to have state-of-the-art gallery spaces, which is a requirement to showcase high-caliber artwork such as those borrowed from the NGA, but also those lent to us by our own contemporary artists. And each time I attend an opening, I'm amazed by just the number and caliber of local artists we do have in Banyule. The next item is a bit of a promo, a free artist talk coming up for International Women's Day. It's going to be a discussion with leading experts and practitioners in Australian art. And the panel will include Dr. Jill Orr, who I've just mentioned is exhibiting at present, Dr. Peter Clancy, who is a Yorta Yorta artist, and Judith Ryan, who is a senior curator for Melbourne University. They'll be talking about women in art, women artists of the Heidelberg School, and what it means to be a contemporary female artist. It's a free event. It's being held at Ivanhoe Cultural Hub and Library, and tickets are available on Humanitics International Women's Day panel discussion. So get in quick, and I look forward to seeing you there, together with no doubt a number of my fellow councillors. Thank you
very much, Councillor. Councillor Elizabeth.
Thank you, Mayor. Towards the end of January, Banyule ran its first citizenship ceremony for 2026. So 107 people came together from many different backgrounds and took the pledge to become Australian citizens. It was a beautiful celebration of Australia's democratic way of life, and the message was to encourage people to respect the Australian way, but also not forget their own heritage. And a pleasure to be there with the Mayor, Deputy Mayor, Councillors Curry and O'Kane. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to make the community aware of a new store that has opened up last week on Wednesday in Greensborough. It's the Good Brick Lego Shop. It is a non-for-profit Lego store creating inclusive jobs for neurodivergent young people. Andrew and his team down there are receiving donations of Lego and Lego sets, and they're repackaging them and selling them to supply a facility that takes on young neurodivergent young people to help them into that job and then jobs in the future. So it's really an amazing addition to the Greensborough community. It's at 14 Church Street, Greensborough. It's the site of the old Christian bookshop. So 14 Church Street, Greensborough. Thank you, Mayor.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Councillor. Okay. We are at public question time. We have received 9 public questions. If any members of the public are in the gallery who have a public question, they are welcome to approach the lectern and ask the question when their name is read out. For those not present, the question will not be read out, and we will be including them in the minutes of the meeting. The minutes will be available on our website later this week. So please note that councillors already have background information submitted. So all you need to do is ask your question. And when asking your question, please proceed to the question. We already have the background information. So we have Sheldon Williams. Thank you. Okay. And that looks like it's being answered maybe by Natasha Swan, our Director of City Development. Was that correct? So we're not doing that. Great. That's good. Clancy Fraser from Heidelberg West. Logan Farrell from Greensborough. Thanks very much, Logan. Please just ask your question.
In relation to the proposed 17-storey tower in Greensborough, has Council been briefed on potential profiteering in this charitable project, and what assurances ensure asset extraction won't result in low-quality housing for vulnerable residents?
Thanks, Logan. I think Director Natasha is answering that. Thank you.
Thank you, Logan. Thank you for the question. Council's not in a position to speculate on the commercial motivations of the development of the 17-storey building at 106 to 126 Main Street, Greensborough. It is understood that the building has received funding through the Housing Australia Future Fund, which is managed by the Federal Department of Finance. It would be a matter for the federal government to assure themselves of the eligibility of anyone receiving this funding. Regardless of the funding source, the development is required to satisfy all relevant planning and building standards that would apply to any apartment development.
Okay. Thank you very much. Our next question is from Jai Sanford. Thanks, Jai. So you've got a proposed revised question there that you're going to be reading out. Lovely. Thank you.
Does Council stand by the planning approach it submitted to the state government on proposed planning for the Heidelberg Activity Centre to the 13 October 2025 Council meeting, where the best connected, wealthier suburbs are protected from change, while lower income, car-dependent suburbs are expected to absorb most of the density? And how does Council justify that as fair or equitable planning?
Thank you. And Director Natasha is reading the answer.
Thank you, Jai. Thank you for the question. Council is committed to meeting the housing targets set for Banyule by the state government across the entire city. Planning for the city considers the context within which land sits. Council's submission to the Heidelberg Activity Centre identified areas of land subject to heritage and environmental protection as not being appropriate for intensive redevelopment given these constraints. Council's adopted housing strategy sets out the citywide plan for accommodating future housing growth, with the highest concentration of housing expected in our three major activity centres at Heidelberg, Ivanhoe and Greensborough. Council is committed to ensuring that development across the municipality has appropriate access to services irrespective of location.
We thank you very much, Director. David Mulholland from Ivanhoe is here with us this evening. Lovely. David, if you could just read out your question. Thank you.
Will do. Thank you, Mayor. My question relates to the rates instalment notice. Given the extraordinary increases to Council's uncapped waste rates and the Labor state government's emergency services tax, why did Council decide to remove the listing of these taxes from the second and third instalment notices? And how does Council justify withholding this information from ratepayers who are legally required to pay them? Thank you.
Thank you. And that will be answered by Director Mark.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. Thanks for the question, David. The information that councils must include on annual rates and valuation notice is prescribed in the Local Government Act 1989, Section 158, Subsection 4, and the Local Government General Regulations 2025, Section 6. Each subsequent instalment notice requires the due date, the amount due, and the available payment options. The information displayed on the annual rate notice and instalments has not changed and is consistent with previous years. This financial year, however, the amount collected for the Emergency Service and Volunteer Fund was clearly identified on the annual rates notice, but happy to receive that feedback.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Director. And our next question is from Pippa Griffith. So Pippa, would you please read out your question for us? Thank you.
Can Council please explain how you are responding to the increased risks associated with the increased potential for bushfires in Banyule?
Lovely. Thank you. And Director Swan, Natasha Swan, is going to be answering that.
Thank you for the question, Pippa, and through you, Mayor. While much of Banyule Council is urbanised, bushfire risks still exist in those areas bordering bushland, north and northwest of the municipality, where fires can enter from the Shire of Nillumbik and the City of Whittlesea. Bushfire risk land is identified through both the Banyule Planning Scheme by way of a bushfire management overlay and the building regulations by designation as bushfire-prone land. These regulations require specific measures to be incorporated in any development. Council has a range of proactive measures in place in our role as a public land manager and authority, including a proactive roadside fuel management approach, engaging in various networks, including the Plenty Gorge Precinct Emergency Management Network, and meeting regularly with key emergency and community service providers. Finally, Council has a role known as a Municipal Fire Prevention Officer, who responds to complaints regarding fire risk properties, which has powers to issue fire prevention notices should property owners not follow reasonable directions to manage their land.
Thank you very much. Question number 7, David from Lower Plenty. Hi, David. Thanks for joining us again this evening. If you could read out your question.
Does council have any policies regarding the use of artificial turf for domestic or commercial applications? And are there any procedures in place for the disposal of this material?
Thank you. All right. Thank you very much, David. And Director Natasha is going to read the answer out for that.
Thank you for your question, and through you, Mayor. The Biennial Planning Scheme includes a policy objective to ensure development provides landscaping that responds to its site context, enhances the built form, creates safe and attractive places, and importantly supports cooling and greening of urban areas. Where a planning permit is required, the use of artificial turf instead of grass is not supported. Instead, areas designated as lawn on landscape plans must consist of grass rather than synthetic material. With respect to nature strips planted out by residents under the new street planting guidelines, we also do not permit the use of synthetic grass as a nature strip treatment. And lastly, there are no specific procedures in place for the disposal of this material other than our normal waste services.
Great. Thank you very much, Director. And Stephen Cullen. Stephen, thank you very much. If you could ask your question.
Thanks, mate. The site of the iconic Ivanhoe RSL continues to degrade. The fire that caused it occurred 10 years ago. Notwithstanding Banyule Council doesn't own the site, what actions has Council taken recently to influence some tangible progress on remediating or progressing the site? And what Council actions are in plan for 2026 to prevent the continued degrading of the site?
Thanks very much, Stephen. Our CEO, Alison Beckwith, will respond to that.
Thanks, Stephen, for your question. The Mayor at the time, Tom Milliken, and I met with the Ivanhoe RSL sub-branch, the Ivanhoe Trust, in early 2024 to explore opportunities how they could progress the rebuild and re-establishment of the Ivanhoe RSL. During the meeting, it became very evident very quickly that the ongoing dispute between both parties who have responsibility for the site management were going to remain unresolved, and neither party were able to agree on a pathway forward. So at that meeting, Council, Tom and myself proposed to fund a mediation process to actually try and bring both parties forward in a reasonable issue. The parties then both wrote to Council declining that offer. So we're basically in a situation where they don't want to actually come to a way forward. So then we engaged advocacy with a local member of Parliament to seek state government involvement in breaking the impasse, particularly because it's such a significant site and, as you said, has been left in a derelict state for 10 years. Late last year, Council's municipal laws team actually worked with the owners of the site and successfully cleaned up overgrown grass, landscaping, removal of dump rubbish, and a large extent of graffiti on the site was also removed just to make the amenity safe and a bit better presented. Most recently, Council has written to the president of the RSL Victoria, who were also in the meeting back in 2024, requesting intervention and guidance how we actually move forward on this site. The RSL Victoria has indicated a willingness to assist Council in facilitating a resolution and restoring the property for community use of some sort. A meeting is now being arranged by the acting Chief Executive of the RSL Victoria and Council officers in the coming weeks to actually determine the appropriate next steps. So we're hoping that that will actually get us some resolution here.
Lovely. Thank you very much. Okay, our final speaker, Melissa Murphy-Webster. Okay, it's working, is it? Thanks very much, Melissa. If you could just ask your question.
No worries. Can a detailed report be provided outlining the current wage structures and costs for each department, clearly distinguishing the number of staff, contractors, management, and non management roles, detailing all changes arising from the current EBA, including the commencement dates and any variations to labour classifications since the previous EBA. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Melissa. And Director Mark is answering that question.
Thanks, Melissa, and through you, Mayor. For the 2025-26 financial year, Banyan City Council has budgeted for an equivalent full-time staff complement of 696.58. Senior leadership consists of 22 staff, 5 executive management team, including the CEO, and 17 senior managers. I do have a table which outlines all of that breakdown for the through that budget, and also the labour classification from permanent, casual, and temporary. But I'll provide that in the response rather than me read all those numbers out. Agency staff also used from time to time for temporary backfill of critical service obligations, and all that information is available in Council's annual budget on the website, and I can help you navigate through that. In relation to the Banyals Enterprise Agreement, it was officially approved by Fair Work Commission with the effective date of the 30th of September 2025. It is also available on the Fair Work Commission website. The agreement includes all staff working conditions, including wage classifications, but also happy to help out the questioner to go through navigate those documents. We can make a time to do that.
Right. Thanks very much, Director Mark. Okay, that ends question time. Maybe. Good job. Okay. That ends question time. I am about to close the meeting for this evening. Just a reminder, we do have Twilight Sounds this Saturday evening at Heidelberg Oval. This is our major annual festival. You're welcome. Lots and lots of musical performances, food and beverage carts, fun for everyone. Please feel free to bring your picnic rug and enjoy a very fun night. Starting at 6 p.m, Heidelberg Oval. Looking forward to see you on Saturday evening. Thank you very much to the collaborative effort of our executive management team for sharing the microphone around this evening so that you in Livestream land could hear us. There's no confidential meeting tonight. I now close the meeting at 9:05 p.m. Thank you very much for your attendance. Please get home safely. The next meeting will be held on Monday, the 2nd of March.
I'll pick you another copy of it going overseas.
Sorry, bro. It was odd to see you soon.